This is outside. Now I am talking in my normal voice about 2 feet away from the engine. This is inside the car, about 2 feet away from the engine. I'm going to keep the camera right here so you can see, so you can hear me perfectly fine. When I get out of the car, right next to the engine is actually very different. It's very hard to hear me at all. So again, this is inside. And then this is outside. And I'm actually talking because I'm actually going to turn the car off. You're actually going to hear the noise difference. Alright, so now here it is. Now with the engine off. Alright, so now let's go outside and let's do a volume test. So now this is me talking normally next to the engine. Now as you can see, the noise level is very different. But since I'm actually going to be able to do this smartly, I'm actually going to get my dad to turn off the engine while I'm talking next to it. Alright, so now here's it with it off, and my dad is actually going to turn on the engine, and while I'm talking, so now I'm talking at the same time, and I'm going to tell him to turn it off while I'm talking. Alright, so turn it off while I'm talking. So as you can see, the noise level is actually a lot different because the engine is actually loud. Now, with insulation, you just put your window up. Unlock the door. Alright. So now, with insulation, inside it's perfectly normal. Now turn the car off while I'm talking, so right now, and it's perfectly silent. So that is why you cannot hear in any of the videos on board the actual rocket. You cannot hear the actual rocket engine going because it is completely isolated from it. And keep in mind where they are actually sitting compared to where the rocket is. It is about way over there. See that window? That's probably where the rocket is. And you are sitting over here. And that was just compared to my engine and me sitting in the back and in the front. So that is also why it is a complete asinine thing to say that you cannot hear the engine because it is actually not going at all. Alright, another thing is they're walking. People say that they're actually not walking the same and that they are actually walking just normally, they just slow the video down. This would require a high-speed camera, which I don't believe they had back then in those primitive forms of the camera in that box. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and recreate this. And all of the moon jumping, and you're going to try and see me create this. One thing to keep in mind is that you really can't speed it up and get it actually look perfect because it actually is about 1/5. So you'd actually have to have the astronauts jumping 5 times as fast and going up and down 5 times as fast, which is practically impossible. So I'm going to try and recreate this, and you're going to see how stupid it is. All right, now you're going to see me run. I'm going to try and do a moonwalk. It's going to look really stupid. And you also have to keep in mind that on Earth the suits weigh about 1,000 pounds. So it's kind of stupid to say that you can actually run with a 1,000-pound suit. And people are going to say, well, if it's 1,000 pounds, then how are you possibly able to lift that on the moon? It's 1/5 its weight. The suit is actually about 200 pounds on the moon because you're never wearing it on Earth. So that's also another thing to keep in mind. So go out. Take about 1,000 pounds. I'm just saying that's rough. I'm not sure it's about that much though. Take 1,000 pounds, put it on your back, and try and run across a field. Try and do that. Oh, but they're also in powdery terrain, so try and do that on the beach. And the likeliness of that actually happening is pretty much impossible. I'm going to say statistically impossible because it actually could be possible if you got a bodybuilder. But then again, these guys are about just my size. So now what I'm going to do is using the Windows Movie Maker, I'm half speed. I'm going to take this clip and I'm going to slow it down. So now I'm just going to run. Try to do a moon jump. All right. Alright. So that was me jumping with just clothes on. Now just imagine me doing that with 1,000 pounds on Earth. It's impossible. You can't do it. There's nobody that's my size that can lift 1,000 pounds and moon jump and try and get actually about 2 feet off the ground striding. It's stupid. You would have to have like springs in your shoes or something. And I mean, and spring shoes, I'll just actually have you know, the spring is actually about that big. The moon boots they're wearing only have about padding this big. So, I don't even have those, but, I mean, striding 2 feet in the air with 1,000 pounds on your back on Earth is stupid. So I'm just going to try and do another moonwalk. And that's not even the thing they're doing. It's like a skip, and I can't even do that, so I'm not even going to try. Alright, so now, number 8, the rocket seems to float. I kind of touched on this a little bit, and it's about the gravity difference. The rocket seems to float because the engine's only 1/5 its actual size that it actually needs to be. So, again, back to the pound thing, let's go back outside. Alright, so now here I have my hose. And I'm going to be doing this down here because I'm actually going to be spraying. So on this hose, I have this special little nozzle right here. As you can see, if you know how a rocket works, in order to get this you really know how a rocket works, but then again you would be making the argument that it's false if you have absolutely no science background whatsoever, which pretty much means that you're in no position to be arguing. So right now I'm going to turn it on, I'm going to make a rocket. Now as you can see, as you saw, that is actually a rocket engine, using Bernoulli's principle of pressure and flow and velocity. So now, have it fully open, it only is about that big. But if I keep the flow the same, but I increase the velocity, I'm going to get more of a push. So right here. So now, actually, in order to prove this, I'm actually going to hold the hose back here. Now with no force, with backwards force, it's going to do this. But with the hose on, like that. And then this would be without the force. Just like that. But now, let's put this on the moon. Now we're on Earth. Let's put this on the moon now. So now, we only have to have 1/5 that rocket size. So now instead of like this, just imagine 1/5 of that. It's going to be like that. Now, that is, it's hard to believe, and that's what a lot of people have trouble with. It's hard for them to believe this whole thing can actually work, because the actual rumors like started with uneducated hippies back then, and back then you have to think of it, people going onto another planet. And I mean, it's just really hard for some people to believe because it actually really is just an out of the world this idea. And I mean, that would just be like if aliens came to Earth, people wouldn't believe it. They would still think it would be fake. People would still find it away. So that's one of the things. So now let's put it with 1/5. So now, you saw that it was actually possible with that. Now think of this floating with only that amount going. You would have to think it would be fake because there's no way. It still falls down. You would have to think that I would have a support rod or something in here. And that's what a lot of people have trouble with. They